Got it. There we go. Okay. Okay, let me pull something up here. Okay. First of all, I would like to introduce, we have Sharon Hadley here tonight. Hello, Sharon. Sharon is new to the desert. She's a guest here tonight, and she's checking us out and seeing what kind of a group we are, and is a potential member. So everybody, please be on your best behavior tonight, and we'll hopefully get her on board. Uh, Sharon, did you have a few anything you'd like to say here?
I'm going to duck up for 1 minute.
She's
You might
muted.
be muted. Let's see here.
You can just press the space bar.
Yeah.
Hold it down.
There
Just
we
hold it
go.
down, and then you can talk.
Right there.
Oh,
There you go.
okay.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm expecting everybody to be on their very best behavior and very charming. I'm sure you all are.
Uh-oh.
Mhm. Well, thank you, Sharon, for looking us up and spending some time with us tonight. So, anyway, we'll go ahead with a few announcements here. Upcoming events. We have Shutterbug Saturday, which is the 21st at 9 a.m. on Panera, North Monterey Avenue in Palm Desert, right near Sam's Club on North Monterey Avenue. So Shutterbug Saturday for those who would like to get together and meet some people, make some new friends, talk about anything camera related or otherwise. That's what we do every third Saturday. So Sharon, there's one for you right now.
Sounds good.
We have the March WOW theme coming up. That would be in keeping with spring and the rains that we've been getting. The theme is wildflowers. And however you wish to show wildflowers in whatever way you'd like to. Just two rules. Uh, the images must be taken any day in March, between March 1st and March 31st, and they must wow the judges. That's it. The only rules there are. So that'll be our March wow theme coming up here. And we'll show those at the April 16th competition. We'll put out a few suggested places and sources of information to places to go to look for wildflowers out there, which right now, I just did a survey on the west side of the valley. Highway 62 area west of Desert Hot Springs is getting pretty red hot out there, especially with all the encelia, the yellow brittle bush out there. It's just fields of it out there right now. The same would be true with Whitewater Canyon, a little further west there. The dune fields on Avenue 38 off Washington Street near the Acrisure Arena are also in bloom out there right now, so that's a good place to check. Of course, it'll all be different by the time March 1st rolls around, but that's what we have going on right now that I've seen. Okay. Sunday, March 8th is our Coachella Valley Desert Camera Club Awards presentation and social. It's at 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Sunday. We have 180 qualifying images from 2025 that have been judged. 3 judges. Of those 180 images, 15 receiving medals. There are numerous honorable mention certificates to be given out. So if you would, go to our News Etc. page on our website, have a look at the RSVP invitation there. Just click on the link for it and let us know you're coming. So it should be a lot of fun. March 8th, 4 to 6:30 p.m. And we'll have a bunch of food and some good times. Tuesday, March 10th. Actually, Sandy Wheaton I think we're going to cancel the Salton Sea tour because we had so many people going with her. What about a dozen people? Isn't that right, Greg? Dozen
Yeah,
people?
we had a dozen people going to the moonrise and sunset at Bombay Beach a couple of weeks ago.
At Bombay Beach, which is a big part of that tour. So we're going to go ahead and change that up. Greg is working on an Anza Borrego wildflower trip down there. So he'll be getting information out to us on that early in March. And then coming up in April, Mitch Miller has a trek, Joshua Tree trek into the Wonderland of Rocks. It's about a 5-mile hike back up in there. So that's coming up. And I think that's all the updates I have for you at the moment. So we'll introduce tonight's judge. Hutch Hutchison is back with us. He's been with us several times before. And just a little bit of background for those who may not know, Hutch is an active member of the Channel Island Professional Photographers of California, Professional Photographers of Los Angeles County, Thousand Oaks Group, photo group, and serves on the board of directors for the S4C, which is Southern California Council of Camera Clubs. He's received numerous awards over the years, over decades, in recognition for his photography, including being twice recognized as a top 10 photographer, the Professional Photographers of California. He primarily shoots for his own pleasure, with his work ranging across a broad spectrum of genres, especially enjoying landscape and action event photography. And his quote is, as a photographer, it is always my hope that my images will move the viewer. Photography is art, and we are all influenced by its impact, color, shape, texture, and beauty. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Darcy and Deb.
Okay, thank you. Tonight it's going to be me. Darcy and I take turns running the competition. She did October, no, she did December. So I'm here for February. And hi, Hutch.
I do.
Looking forward to this. So I will share my screen without further ado. And we will begin. We're going to
Just give me a moment to say a couple of words before we begin.
absolutely. I was just going to say, could you
Yeah,
please
I'd like to tell a little story of something that happened 2 years ago. I was privileged to be the person to run the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy annual photo contest. And I picked 3 of my best people I could think of up in the area that knew the Santa Monica Mountains to be my judges. And when we got all done with the first round, we ended up with about, just under 100 images. And I knew I had to narrow it down. So I asked all of the makers to pick their favorite 30 images, thinking by that point I could have, all 3 of them that picked an image would probably be in make the final round, and those that picked 2. Well, guess what happened? Not one of the 3 judges picked the same images, the same 30. They were all completely different. And that doesn't happen very often, but I think it illustrates that those of us that are judges are not perfect. And that really, I think the sense of why you have 11 or 12 judges a year is so that you get different perspectives and different ideas in terms of photography, because it's a creative thing. So I welcome people to disagree with me. That's fine. Some of it is very personal, and the impact can vary from person to person. But take it, don't take me as being necessarily the all-knowing, perfect judge, because I don't think there is such a thing. I think if we all collectively looked at these images, we'd all have a little bit different opinions. So my real goal, hopefully, is to educate and rather than judge. And I hope that I can do that for you. And if I succeed a little bit, then it'll be a good evening. So anyway, with that, moving on.
all right. Do you want to say a few words before we begin for the pictorial color, the things that you are looking for in an image that moves you or speaks to
Sure.
you? Hutch?
Well, pictorial color is kind of tough, and I think it's difficult in S4C. I belong to one professional club where there are 17 categories, and it drives me nuts. But they separate out weddings, and they separate out portraiture, and they separate landscape, and and all of the elements, genres that are different. In open color, one of the tough things is that you're a mixed bag of every kind of genre of photography there is. So oftentimes it can be the impact of certain things can be more one way or the other, depending on the experience of the person critiquing. And that's kind of the way it has to be with clubs our size that we typically compete in. You kind of got to throw them all in that one basket. And that's what pictorial color is all about. It's the opportunity for everybody to kind of submit an image of their choice in color, not monochrome, and hopefully, or not hopefully, but compete head to head with your landscape against a wedding photography. Well,
Mhm.
so that's kind of it. And what I'm looking for mainly is the traditional impact, number one, composition, and technical. I try to boil it down into those three areas. I often follow, if you want, you could look up the gold standards of the Professional Photographers of America, and they break it up into 12 different standards. And essentially, as you go through all of those, I'm not quick enough to go through them all as I critique, so I try to boil it down to those three. So that's basically what I'll be looking for in the open color, and frankly, in the other groups also.
Okay, thank you. For those of you who came a little late, Hutch raised a really great point that he hoped that our images, if they didn't score an excellence or honorable mention, could be re-entered in a further contest using the comments that he's made tonight. And so I think that's really helpful for all of us, because yes, you can do that. It's just you can't enter if you've won an award, but if you haven't, then you can always re-enter. So I will share now again, and I will just set up the competition for the pictorial color we're going to do first. And you can see I'm using Visual Pursuits to do that. I will begin here with the competition for pictorial color. We didn't have any intermediate entries in this, so we just have all of the advanced people in it. With that, I will start on the image. If you like, you can see the scoring that's at the bottom. Hutch thought that was maybe a good thing to see what the image scored, and as he talks, if you don't want to know, just avert your eyes. So, okay, Hutch, away you go.
Okay, I'm gonna have to use my peepers to see my scores. I gave this an image an 8. And mainly because of the really what I consider technical excellence of the image. The lighting is exquisite. They say the eye is the entry to the soul of a human or an animal, and clearly the eye is just as sharp as a tack. In fact, that the whole bird is. The background is beautifully blurred out. So there's just a ton of positive things on this. The reason it didn't quite reach a 9 with me is because I would have maybe played a little bit with a little bit different crop. You know, they talk about moving subjects, leaving room, space for a moving object to move into. And I think it's the same thing to a degree with something like this animal. You've got a lot of big negative space on the left and not much room to get a sense of him looking out to whatever he's looking at. So that was the difference between it being an 8 and a 9 for me. Next image. There's a lot to enjoy about this image. I gave this a 6 actually, and I love the composition. It's really nicely placed in the frame. I kind of wish maybe there was just a little more space on the bottom. There's what we refer to as a tangency or close to tangency, and you want to leave the room for your eye to move around the image. The struggle I had with it, the color palette is beautiful, but it just, for my eye, is not sharp. And I feel like it's just been cut out against that background. And maybe perhaps that is natural sky, and that's great. But just kind of the halos around some of the edges, and the fact that it not as sharp as I would like for a pictorial color image left me with that score. Next. I had a lot of fun with this. I gave this an 8. And it's always a real challenge to photograph a aquarium, which I presume this is. I hope it is. And I think that they say things shouldn't be centered, but there's almost a symmetry to this image that I think really works. And the bluefish in the center really draws your eye into the image, and then you kind of wander around and enjoy all of the other fish. Um, Frankly, I think it was the difference between it being a 9 and an 8 was simply maybe that margin of impact for me, where I felt maybe the color was just a little bit popped. So I was close on it. Next image. Next.
I'm sorry, I went to next.
Yeah, that's okay. Gave this a 7. Really, really strong initial impact. I think for most of you looking at this, you probably felt the same. I mean, it just wham, really hits you. The reason I scored it a 7 is I think there's maybe some technical issues with it, possibly minor compositional images that I think perhaps could be fixed. I have an image like this of downtown LA to the ocean, to San Pedro, and I've struggled with some of the things that I'm going to comment on in this. The whites in a lot of being down in the lower center, there's a bright white building. Over on the left, there's a bright white ship. There's just a lot of really hot highlights. And I think, and I struggled with my own image, admittedly, bringing those highlights down. Then at the other end of the spectrum, you get very blocky. You get very blacked out, no detail. And again, I've kind of struggled with lifting that out, and I've been a little bit successful doing it. Some of it, I think, maybe relates to the dynamic range capabilities of the camera. But I think if this were my image, what I might try to do is pull down the top a little bit because you kind of have that negative space up at the top, the black area, and pull up the bottom to eliminate if possible, the two little white buildings down there that your eye kind of fixates on rather than letting you move into the image. So, I mean, congratulations to the maker. It's again impactful. I just think that technically could be a little bit stronger. Next image. I gave this a 7 also. It's a pleasant composition, and I really enjoy it from that standpoint. The point of interest is the waterfall, and the color and saturation and luminosity of the plants in the foreground almost almost overwhelmed me so that my eye didn't really move back into the image. And it's a little bit flat overall. I think that, using a little bit of painting with Lightroom layers or in Photoshop might have done a lot for this image. But again, it was just a little bit flat, and I just felt those shrubs in the front, maybe toning them down or doing something where I could travel back to that waterfall might have been better. So again, I gave it a 7. Next image. For me, the impact of this was wowzer. I mean, I just love it. There's a kind of a figure to ground relationship in this, and those of you that don't know what I mean, I don't want to give a long lessons on figure to ground, but you might want to look up the term because it really is an important concept of composition. It's where basically the background and the foreground um, are almost opposites. And one of the greatest Brooks teachers ever taught me about figure to ground, and I oftentimes think about it when I'm out in the field. I just love the image. It's a little bit centered. It's kind of asymmetrical, which I think is okay. My only nitpick, and this comes from my being in not only in the PSA world but in the PPC world and the PPA world, is in the PPA world we talk a lot about digital gardening, and you see the little speck in the upper left.
Mhm.
And you see the little white speck down below the leaf on the left there. Those are just what we refer to in that world as distractions. They're really minimal, but it's the difference sometimes in a judge giving it an 8 versus a 9 on an image like this. So if you're going to go to a higher level with this image, I'd suggest just going blip, blip, and taking those out. And I think that you'll be more successful again at a higher level where they may be a little bit more nitpicky. Next image. I spent a long time looking at this image, and I gave it a 7 in the end. Actually, I think I swapped scores up, down, up, down, down, up, um, not quite knowing where to go. I love abstracts. And in an abstract, I believe, is where there is not specifically a point of view, but the totality of the image has an abstract characteristic to it. Um, it doesn't quite make it there to me. And then at the other end of the spectrum is a nature photo. Um, there are several things. One, the flower is pretty hot, losing detail, and I'm not sure what I would have done, very honestly. I, I want to say, well, I'd take a clipper and clip one of the flowers off or something, but my eye keeps just kind of ping pong. I mean, it's focused on those two bright flowers and kind of ping ponging back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so, not quite sure what to do with that. And then there's a couple other little minor things. I'm not so sure that some areas of it are quite as sharp as they might otherwise be. But I think it was a good, honest effort at seeing something that maybe the rest of us might not have. So, congratulations to the maker in that respect. And again, I gave it a 7. And next image. This is really pretty. And it's a good choice to put this in color rather than in nature. And when we get to nature, I'll kind of explain a little bit why. But it's really a beautiful composition. And maybe you can see what I was talking about with the first image of the bird versus this image, where both are technically really, really good. But the space to the right, where the bird is facing to the right, and you've got space just kind of to follow that eye line of the bird into. Feather detail is remarkable. Um, and nothing not to love about this image. I gave it a 9. Next. Definitely impact. And it gives me some wonderment about where it is and what it is. And I kind of wonder whether this might not, if you're entering PSA or you're entering PSA competitions, whether this might fit pretty well into the travel category. I gave it a 6, and I kind of struggled with that between a 7 really and a 6. but there's it's very bright um, with whatever that is, a bridge, I presume, and the house. And then you've got kind of blocky areas down below. I think if it were my image, and this is an artistic choice, I might have toned down the lighting on those areas and pulled up the shadows just a little bit. That being said, I'm looking down there, and maybe if I pulled up the shadows, I might see a lot of messy stuff down there. This is another one too, where a little what I call digital gardening might come in handy. It would not be hard to take out the kind of messy rocks down in the immediate foreground because your eye kind of goes foreground, middle ground, background in a landscape like this, and I kind of get stuck on all that messiness down there, and it would be pretty easy to just plunk, 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 plunk out of a lot of those little rocks or debris or whatever it is in the foreground there, and just have a beautiful, beautiful water and sense of a sky reflection. Um, the there's some would argue it's good, and some I'm not so sure on the tonality of the blue in the mountains and what have you. Just the color tones, maybe just it's a saturation issue, I'm not sure, but they threw me off a little bit. Next image. I gave this a 5. And you know, technically, there's nothing wrong with it. It's nicely focused in the foreground, but I have no clue what this is. I've got no sense of purpose of the photograph. I've got really no point of interest to focus on. I'm kind of wondering why the maker didn't move uh, to put this maybe on an angle or even straight on, whatever it is. But right now, it's it's kind of splits into two images. The left half is the desert, and the right half is the whatever the object is. And so it's kind of a cut in half. And again, that initial impact was what the heck is it? What's going on? Where am I supposed to look? So that's mainly why I gave it the 5. Next image. Uh, I gave this a 6. And I think I see where the maker was going with it. I understand. I mean, the colors and what have you in the hill are really pretty exquisite. So, what is this about? What's my point of interest? Where did you want me to look? What did you want me to see? What did you want me to think? And what I got is a very bright, very messy bush kind of interfering with me enjoying what I think is the balance of the image. I'm also struggle a little bit with the brightest areas is where your eye is going to go. And so I've got a very bright area on the left, upper left, and I've got a very bright place on the lower right. And I'm kind of ping-ponging my eye back and forth and back and forth. When I struggle to get my eye off of those things, I start looking at, kind of the neat stuff in the foreground, and then especially that background hillside area with the beautiful colors. So for that reason, again, I gave it a 6. Next image. I love this image. I gave it an 8. Um, and there's only one reason I gave it an 8. And later on, I'll show you even more why I gave it an 8. It is really fun. The colors are fun. Is what is referred to as implied lines. When you get a repeating pattern or repeating pattern, that's a leading line. A leading line does not have to be a singular line. It can be a repeating line that takes your eye and lets it travel along. So you've got leading lines there that are taking you in, And the reason it didn't become a 9 is because it led me to what? It did not lead me to any real point of interest. It led me to the sky and the water there. And so one of the judges that taught me a lot early in my photography said, there needs to be a girl with a red bikini standing at the end of the leading line. There needs to be a point of interest. And I kind of felt that was what was missing in this. I'm not so sure what you do about it, but Jay Mizell, who's probably my most favorite photographer, if you're not familiar with him, look him up, out of New York, amazing guy. He says, find your location, sit and wait. And eventually something or somebody would have come through. Even you might have had to wait for a couple of hours, but that would have been the frosting on the cake that would have made this a 9 for me. Next image. Gave this a 7, and I really struggled with that. I went back and forth, up, down, down, up, kind of trying to figure out where to land on my score. And I led, it's maybe a compromise, admittedly a compromise for me, because there's things I really like about it, and there's things I'm not really fond of. The big, bright yellow, whatever it is, in the foreground to the right, looks like some man-made structure. I don't know. It's just so uniform. But my eye just kind of gets stuck there. And then there's all this other, there's really almost 2 images. You just take this image and slice it right down the middle horizontally. And, then you've got all that wonderful ripples or whatever those are at the top that are just beautiful with light kind of scattered through them. And then you take the bottom, and I'm just not as fond of the bottom as I am of the top because I get stuck on that big yellow stuff. I kind of, the struggle and why I went back and forth is because I kind of see where the maker was trying to go with it. And maybe he was successful or she was successful doing there. So maybe it's more the impact to me. But again, technically, technically the image is great. But of course, from a standpoint of composition, again, I'm stuck on that big yellow blob. So next image. I gave this an 8. And just a lot of fun. I mean, this is just a fun image. It's an impactful image. I mean, as soon as it came up, it was just kind of wow. Again, the only reason that this did not reach a 9 in my mind was I felt like, if I looked at some of the detail down under the bridge and what have you, the boat, and maybe even in the balloons, just felt a little blocky to me. Like there's just obviously there's been quite a bit of contrast added to this image, and it works. I think that with just a tad less might have been better. They also that I was tempted to take out a magnifying glass, but I just feel like there's a little haloing around some of the balloons up there, just a little white edge. And again, that's maybe a result of just kind of punching it up. Compositionally, it's terrific. It's an asymmetry. The asymmetry is wonderful. The way that the bridge is framed and the balloons, fantastic. So great image, just didn't quite reach the 9 with me. So again, got an 8. Next image. Oh boy. This is another one I slid up and down and down and up and all over the place on. I totally understand and get where the maker was going with this. I mean, the light is pretty spectacular. the clouds are, the streak across the mountain is. And I kept looking at it and looking at it and thinking, why is the impact just not hitting me? And I think there are two reasons. One is that I think there's a little bit of an imbalance in terms of the shadows versus the highlights. If you look down at the lower left, there's a bunch of trees in there, but they're basically pretty much black blobs. Is about the only way I can describe them. The other thing I felt might have been better, and it's always easy for a judge to say this because he wasn't there, and I don't know if you took a few steps backwards whether you'd have fallen off a cliff. But I kind of would have liked to have seen more. I've just got this big monolith right straight in the middle of my screen. And I think I might have wanted to see a little bit more, particularly maybe some of the sky and some of the surroundings. So it just kind of fell down on terms of the impact with me and looks just a hair soft. Although that may just be my watery eyeballs. I'm not sure. Anyhow, I gave it a 6. Next image. God, you guys tortured me. Um, I'm growing an affinity for reflection images. I've got a really good friend. He's the president of the Ventura County Camera Club, who is a maniac doing these. And they're very abstract and they're very kind of street photography-ish. I gave this a 7, and perhaps I'm prejudiced by Bill's images a little bit because he's getting better and better and better at doing it. And that is, I'm not so sure exactly where my point of interest is in this. There's really kind of two images here. There's the upper half and there's a lower half that's a little bit confusing with the double reflection of the car. So maybe that was by design of the maker, but I kind of get stuck on the high side and I get confused on the bottom side. So there's where I kind of landed and compromised at a 7. Next image. This is what I kind of refer to, and I may talk about it a little bit more later, as a documentary image. And there's nothing wrong with documentary images. I gave this a 7. I mean, it's documenting somebody else's art out in the middle of the desert. And there's an incongruity, and maybe that was the intent of the maker, I don't know, between oil cars and what I'm not sure what it was. My first impression was it was a piece of the Berlin Wall because it looks a little bit like that. But on the other hand, I think it's a relic of an old building. If you're going to make art with your photography, at least for me, what I want to try to do is make new art or something different. And I think there's a lot of interesting ways potentially to do that with this image. I'm getting more and more as I progress in my photography, hopefully a little bit. I'm getting more and more focused on details, zooming in and getting close and finding different angles and what have you. And I think there was really an opportunity to do that in this image. The heck with the oil cars and the heck with the sky and all of the kind of gloss stuff on this. Get in there and make art out of a close-up of that image. So 7. Next image. I gave this a 6, and for a number of reasons. It's a pretty scene, no question about that. The image needs some post-production work, and I don't know if it was a beginner that shot this or an advanced person, but there's a lot of kind of learning stuff that can be had out of this image. The first thing is that, I think a lot of us that judge it, this is one of our little picky things that we really pick on, is the world is tilting to the left side, I believe. The horizon line there with the water is kind of at a slant, and it really needs very, very easy to level that out. The next thing is that the light is very, very flat, and that can be punched up with a little bit of contrast, a little bit of moving your white and your black sliders to give it a little bit more pop. And then you got to be careful of properly. Reflections are always a little darker than the top half or what is being reflected, and that's kind of correct there. But nonetheless, your clouds there are edging towards being a little bit blown out. And I think you probably could have pulled a lot more out of the trees in terms of detail and what have you. So all around, all in all, I always kind of wish I could give a Photoshop or a Camera Raw or a Lightroom lesson on an image like this. Unfortunately, we certainly don't have time to do that tonight, but work on post-processing, and I think you got a really nice, fun image. So again, I got a 6, I believe I gave it, yeah, next image. Really fun image, and I gave it a 9. I think compositionally it really works well. I think the impact of it is unique because generally you don't find those critters easily composed like that on the flower. It is just nice and sharp, which is tough to do with those. Every time I try, they go flitting away, and I end up with a blurry bug or not working. And nice depth of field between the image. So all in all, it just I think overall works very well, compositionally, technically, and just from a standpoint of impact. Next image. I kind of think this is the same location as the other image that had the bright tree. And to me, this is definitely a better image. I still scored it a 7. The reason I did was I think there's I talk about painting with light, and those of you that use Lightroom, I presume most of you, or Camera Raw or Photoshop, you're very bright on the top and you're kind of flat light on the bottom, and you can just brush in just a little bit of shadows and detail and light, and you move an image like this up very, very quickly. The other, this is a nitpick, up in the left-hand corner, I don't know if that's a cloud or that's just a bright sky. But overall, I think there's a whole lot in this image that you can work with. And so I gave it a 7, and I think you're on the right track to do some work on it and maybe bring it back and get a much better score. Also, I think this is another one where the horizon is maybe tilting a little bit to the right, maybe leveling that off slightly. And I would pull, or at least I would try it, pulling the bottom up, cropping the bottom up so that, because I think that area down there, sometimes it's nice to have something grounding on the bottom. But I think that area down there is just kind of messy and is not serving a purpose. So I would crop it up a little bit, just get rid of that and work on the nice stuff that's there. So again, 7, next image. Another image that tortured me. Um, I guess the one side of me said, gee, nice choice of symmetry. Um, it it was a little confusing to me. Actually, I kind of like the rocks better than I do the yucca or whatever the plant is. Um, it's it just kind of left me. Uh, well, technically, it's pretty good. A little bit tough on the highlights there. Not quite sure what's creating the shadows, whether there was a flash on it. It kind of looks like maybe this was a flash photography kind of a thing because it's kind of got that blast. So it led me to believe, doesn't look natural with the sun. In fact, the direction of the shadows is even convincing me maybe a little more of that. I could be wrong, but it just, I think, was kind of a messy image where I wasn't quite sure where to land. One thought in my mind was uh, maybe a little different crop, whether don't worry about the symmetry so much, but again, kind of get into the details of it and maybe some of the stuff with the rock. I'm looking at that one branch hanging over to the right there and saying, well, maybe that's enough just with that shadow below it. I think that might be a better image, but I'd have to play with it. So 7, next image. Oh boy, do I see where the maker was going with this. This I gave a 7, and in some respects, it's technically correct. Things that are in the distance tend to have a little bit of a blue cast because of the atmospherics and what have you. Things that are closer to you tend to be warmer and what have you. And that sure is the case here. I just felt like it still needed a little bit more pump and pizzazz. I completely missed the fact that the river was down there initially. And I think that partially is just, again, an issue of kind of contrast and color down there. They might have just brought the color of the river up just a little bit and brought the surroundings down a little bit. There is nice shape in the shadows in this, so there's a lot to work with there. So again, I think it's maybe a little bit of more post-processing learning experience or effort. So I gave it a 7. Next image. This I keep saying this, but I sincerely mean it. Um, I struggled with some of these. I've got an image not of this location, but a similar concept that I have struggled to enter in competition, and I love it, but I am terrified of what judges are going to say. So even those of us that judge get terrified of other judges, believe it or not. A couple things about this image. If it were mine, um, again, you look at what is the point of interest? Where does your eye go? How does your eye travel around the image? What do you see? And the first thing I see is that roof of that building down in the lower foreground. And that's where your eye kind of starts and then travels through an image. I don't really think you need that at all. In fact, it's just so uh, in your face compared to the rest of the buildings. So I would certainly crop up from there. The next thing I kind of saw was that there's a perspective thing going on here. I think this was shot I think with a pretty wide angle lens because I'm comparing the building's size on the right and I'm comparing the building size on the left and assuming that they are relatively the same size in reality, you've kind of got a perspective issue going on here. I think maybe you might be able to work it nonetheless by just cropping in tight and making the image about the buildings and not so much all the rest of the stuff. I know that you probably wanted to keep that sky in up there, and I think that's a good choice because I like that the pastel color kind of complements all the other pastel colors in there. But I would play with cropping it more and seeing what you might be able to come up with where there aren't some of those distractions. A little bit crop from the left and cropping up from the bottom to get rid of that big roof and get in tight. I think I would even try cropping down where there's just nothing but the city, but that might be a little bit extreme. So anyway, I gave it a 7, and I would encourage you to work with it and think about bringing it back in the future because it is a fun image and one that I love the concept of. Next image. Well seen. And I looked at this image a lot. And I kind of pondered a few things. One is I'm confused by the tonality, and maybe that is that kind of green tint. Maybe that is reality of whatever that structure is. Maybe that was correct. I just don't know, and I have no way of knowing. But I find it, the light is kind of flat on it, needs a little punch, and I used to do event photography, especially for schools and what have you, and sometimes the images were correct from what the camera saw. And in particular, what I'm referring to is a girls' choir where they're all wearing black robes, and the director puts these orange gels on the light, and they look correct in the audience, but they look like pumpkins when in a photograph. So I would uncorrect them. I would change the white balance to make it look more pleasing and more real. And I kind of wonder here whether that might bring a little bit more to this image. The other thing I'm looking at on this is I kind of felt like there was a little bit of a perspective issue. And then I looked at the lines in the concrete at the top and the bottom, and that kind of confirmed to me that maybe it just needs to be tweaked a little bit to square that off. But that's really a nitpick. So I gave it a 7. Right now I'm almost squabbling with myself whether I didn't go a little bit low on it because it is really a creative and interesting shot. But anyway, I'd go back and play a little bit with the color tones on this and maybe punching it up a little bit with contrast. But if you do that, don't lose the people down below, blacking them out. That really gives a sense of scale. Those people are really important to that image. You get a feeling of how big this is by looking at them, so you don't want to lose them in the shadows there. Next image. Um, Gave this a 6. This is kind of an example of it's very easy for those of us that judge to say, well, it's midday and there's a lot of harsh light and a lot of harsh shadows, and you should have waited for a nice sunset to do this image. And I understand that you may have been hiking out there and it may have been your one and only opportunities to shoot it, but nonetheless, I've made a lot of trips to the Eastern Sierras with bad photographic uh, conditions, and unfortunately, most of them went in the trash because I knew exactly what the judges were going to do when I got into the bright light in this kind of conditions. So, and the other thing you might have played with, I noticed the trees in the back, and these all kind of potentially, I think, line up. And so I might have tried to make them more of a leading line rather than just a kind of a centered blob of trees. So I think there's some things to do in that regard. And so anyway, that was a 6. Next image.
Well, that brings us to the end of the pictorial color images. So we'll exit from this, and what I'll do is just to show the winning images, the excellence and the honorable mentions.
Already?
And so we will go through these. Just sometimes they flip on me. So Excellence Award, Beautiful Wild Breed Lotus by James Can Choi Watt. And Excellence Award, Little Green Bee Eater by Jan Lyle. Excellence Award, Crimson Marsh Glider by Jan Lyle. Honorable Mention, Gull in Morning Light by Brian Vandemark. Honorable Mention, Tropical Reef, also by Brian Vandemark. Honorable Mention, Laverna Beach by Jan Lyle. Honorable Mention, Balloon Gathering over London Bridge by Greg Lilly. I think that's it. Right. So now we will go back out and just have to see if I can move this there. Now we will move on to the Nature General category.
Good job, everybody. Here's where we switch up a little bit with PSA competition.
Yes, please go ahead there. I'll just
Is
talk more.
those of you that knew Stuart and I had a lot of fun kibitzing in the parking lot behind the center there after the judging in the dark, and we'd go back and forth, and I would say, and Stuart would say, "Why did you do this? And why did you give that score?" Blah, 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 blah. And I will never forget one night there was a lioness and her cub sitting at the top of a hill with this gorgeous light over them, looking out over this beautiful savanna in Africa. And I gave it a 9 in nature. And Stuart was all over me in the parking lot. Why in the world did you do that? He said, well, nature is all about the story. It's not about being a pretty picture. It's about the story. And I said, well, I agree with you, Stuart, but I think a lioness sitting with her cub overlooking the savannah is a story. And at the end of the night, after going back and forth on it, he said, well, you're kind of right, and I'm kind of right, and we both agreed we were both kind of right. So it's one of those things with nature where composition, technical, and impact takes a little bit of a second seat to the storytelling. And that's really hard, I think, for judges to overcome an image that's on a scale of 9, that's an 11 in their mind because it's so pretty. But that's kind of the rules. So I tend to lean my direction in terms of what I see as a story versus Stuart's. It was much more literal in terms of the rules. And maybe you'll kind of see that as we go through these tonight. But if you move up to it, and I'm a little more generous at this level, I guess I'm cautioning you on that because hopefully the purpose of you guys doing this, and I applaud your club for using PSA categories as a learning field. So hopefully, you will learn these rules here. You move up into S4C competition, and it gets a little bit more difficult. And then you move up into PSA international exhibits, and the judges really get prickly on that. I mean, you almost have to have a hyena eating a turtle or something to do well in nature at that level. So anyhow, enough on that. Let's see the images.
Okay, here we are. Here's our first image.
This is not showing titles, is it?
No, it's not.
That's kind of it's kind of a shame in a way.
We could have probably done that, Hutch, but we sort of purposely didn't.
Well,
Some judges don't want them shown, but
yeah, there's two theories about titles.
yeah.
The one theory is that if you need a title to explain it, it's probably not a great image. The other side of it is, well, and it's a side I believe in that got to be taken judiciously, is that sometimes subtly, I don't think an image should totally rely on a title to explain it, but sometimes it'll open up a little bit more what the image is about. And I think maybe that was the case here, but I gave this a 9. And initially, I was actually a little bit lower because I felt that it needed a little bit more contrast and punch. But then I realized that the story on this is nature creating a environment to protect an animal. So this animal's natural color and what have you is a defense mechanism from other predators getting to it. And it is it's matching itself. If you were 20 feet away from this guy, you may not even see that he's there. I'm presuming that's the case, but I'm pretty sure it is. And I think the title helped a little bit with that. So I gave this a 9 because I think there's a delicate balance between photographing something like this and letting it separate itself. There's that figure to ground that I referred to earlier. Does not have a very strong figure to ground. It does not stand out against the background, but that really is the story. A little bit of a nitpick on it is that I felt that the foreground is a little bit out of focus, but in a tight macro, I kind of have the feeling this is a very small bug. It's sharp where it should be. So next image, and congratulations to the maker.
Yeah, I think this is called Ghost Crab.
Ghost crab, and then yeah, so
Title, so
right. I gave this a 9, and this is one where I kind of broke that rule. Although there is a story there. I mean, it's eating its lunch, which is kind of a story. It's a well done image, and I think at this level, it deserved the. I give it a
9.
9. Yeah, I think it deserved a 9. Again, if you go to a higher level with it, don't be surprised if this suddenly drops down to a 8 or a 7. Because I'm not sure how strong the story really is. So otherwise, just a beautifully well composed image with nice color. Next image. I gave this a 7, and I think that the story in this is kind of those two critters interacting, and it's just a lot of superfluous, in my mind, area in this image that doesn't need to be there to strengthen that story. I would have probably cropped much tighter around the two guys at the top, and that might have pulled me into a higher score, especially in nature, where again the technical and what have you is not quite as important. So it was a 7. Next image. Um, 7 also. And I guess there's this, I'm stretching for the story. It's really well composed from a standpoint of positioning the foreground deer. I don't even mind in fact, I applaud the maker for having the courage to chop off a little bit of the antlers in the top. You don't need them all, and judges and I fight about this all the time. But so often we want to include everything, which then leaves a lot of nothingness behind it. And in this case, that crop down really helped. Compositionally, the one thing I did struggle with is that and again, you were faced with that, unless you waited hours and the deer maybe went away, but you're stuck with what you've got, is that bright area of lawn in the back or grass in the back is just pulling me way away from the deer there. She's well executed. I'm not so sure what you do to change it to make it better, but you're stuck with what you got, and so 7. Next image. I gave this an 8, and I think there's a subtle story here that I've tried to portray in some images, and I always get killed. But you got the stages of this cactus flower happening. You've got the birth of it as a bulb down in the lower right, and then it springs forth, opening up into a flower, and then it shrivels up into a third stage. Congratulations to the maker for putting those 3 on a diagonal. It makes the image much, much stronger. Diagonals are powerful in an image, and it kind of helps the symmetry of this, where that centerpiece is so centered and so strong, but the image is balanced, and that's a lot of what composition is about, is balance. So I gave it an 8 and really enjoyed the image. Next. There's a 9. Um, this is when you again get to that next level, the story of an animal eating a fish or whatever. That's what the judges love. Real nitpick on this image because I really think it's very good. And I think that the doing it would not be a violation of the rules. Is I would really love to see the bear's eye a little bit more, and I would really like to see the fur under the eye, see a little bit more detail in that. But there's where the balance between technical and what have you versus the story becomes in nature so important. So 9, and congratulations to the maker. Next. I gave this an 8. I think the scorpion and what appears to be kind of its habitat is a story. Maybe not as strong as some others might be, but it is nonetheless. Tonality is good. I might want a little bit more contrast to it, but I think overall it's pretty good. There's not much you can do in nature, so I'll kind of leave it at that. If this was not in nature, I'd really be all over the white rocks and what have you not being toned down, but you can't do that in this category. It's just a very, very limited editing. So keep that in mind as you continue to compete in this category. Next image. Boy, I gave this very intentionally a 7 because I hope the maker will bring this back. This is the one that just stuck out to me. Kind of ask you folks, you don't have to verbally answer, but ask yourselves, is that foreground adding anything to this image? It's not for me. It's just a bunch of littered crap on the beach. So uh, pull that foreground up to, oh God, I wish I could annotate this. Up to, maybe just in front of the beachhead itself. Think about the images that you see of Bosque del Apache from New Mexico with the birds taking off. It almost is an abstract. You got a couple of really, really good things going. Those lines of the waves are just fantastic. The birds in flight are fantastic. I might even take a little bit off the top and just make it a panorama and make it a semi-abstract. That's where the heart of this is, and that's what the story is this group of birds just simultaneously, boom, how in the world do they keep from running into each other? It's really, in my mind, great nature. So pull it up a bunch from the bottom, bring it down a little from the top, if you agree with me, and bring it back again for another judge, because I really think it's got super potential. Nice capture. Next image. Yeah, it's nature. And I think I've got an idea, knowing where you guys live and probably photograph where this was taken. Um, it's a I get the feeling it's kind of a portrait. The light is really, really flat. I'm not so sure where the story is of what this animal is doing. The impact to me was minimal, and that's maybe because I see a lot of leopards and tigers and what have you as I'm judging. And so, anyway, I gave it a 7. I mean, it's technically correct. Next image. This versus the other seals or otters or whatever they are, to me, is a much, much stronger. And I gave it an 8. You can really feel the what's kind of going on between them. I never know whether they're really fighting or whether they're playing or whether they're mating or whatever they're doing. But I just love the open mouth and the jaws here and the one attacking the other. If it were my image, I would probably try again to crop down a little bit. And I think, again, at a little bit higher level, cropped a little bit tighter to where the story really is without quite so much negative space wandering around it. You probably do pretty well. I love the swirly water in the front. I mean, you just feel the action in this image. It really, really fun. Next image. Um, I see where what the maker's seeing in this. It's getting a deer with its tongue stuck out like that, um, is maybe an opportunity you don't get very often. But the image really, um, I'm not so sure that that is that strong a story. The exposure is good. The depth of field is kind of good, but it's a really busy image. I wish I could see the eye of the deer. Um, just a lot of stuff that the little white flowers or whatever they are down at the bottom just kind of pop out at me. Just a lot of stuff that made me actually, it just struck me. I'm not so sure it cures the whole thing, but when I looked at the little white flowers, pulling my eye down there, I thought, what if this image was cropped up much tighter to where it's really, you really get to where it is about the deer sticking his tongue out. Maybe that makes it. I don't know. Um, but as it is, I gave it a 6. And next image. Yeah. Um, I think compositionally, it's pretty good. It's this asymmetry that lets it be centered the way it is. I think it still would be a little bit better. Oh, excuse me. Be a little bit better, maybe moved more over into the third on one to the left side. Um, but it's a very, very contrasty image. I guess arguably you might assume that there's kind of a dating thing or a mating thing going on between the birds. I don't know. So I'm kind of guessing at what the story is. Um, the the blacks have really lost a lot of detail, and there's something going on in the whites and the feather detail there that kind of got to me too. So it pops. This is an example of a good figure to ground relationship where it really pops out from the background. But technically, I think you need to bring up some of the dark details. Next image, gave that a 7, by the way. I gave this a 8. And I really feel like this is a nature story, and I think so often at S4C and PSA, you got to have animals eating animals, and they neglect to see the story in nature, in plants, and in our environment. And I thought this was really pretty cool. This pod opening up, getting ready to release its seeds back into nature and reproduce. So maybe it's just me, but I kind of see the story there. I think it might have lifted me actually up into a 9 had I sent the sense that it was a little bit sharper than what I perceive it to be. But I think it's a pretty good image, and I really believe it's a pretty good story from my perspective. Again, other judges might differ with me, but I enjoyed it. So next image. This is another one that I gave a 7 to because I want you to bring this one back. PSA has really relaxed the rule of human elements being in a nature image. In the past, if you had so much of a footprint, they disqualified your image. It was really pretty ridiculous. Now they look, in fact, I was judging a PSA competition not too long ago, and or actually, we were doing a selection for an interclub competition, an image came up and I said, God, they're going to disqualify that. And so we called the head of the PSA Nature Division. He said, no, it was three giraffes walking down a road. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. A road being in nature? And they said, no, they've actually relaxed it to that extent, but it still has to be integral to the story. So apparently giraffes walking down a road can be integral, but I want you to look at the top of this image. And all of a sudden you see the fence posts up there that have absolutely nothing to do with the birds sitting on the fence post. So I think that is the danger zone of this image if you were to enter it at S4C or in a PSA exhibit. And I wanted to kind of point that out as an illustration. I wanted to give you an opportunity to, I think, fix it so that it wouldn't risk a DQ, and actually, I think, make it a better image. It's like the flock of birds. I don't know that the top of this image is serving any purpose, and frankly, I'm not so sure that all of the bottom is. If it were mine, I'd be cropping down to see that darker area of brush right above the birds. I'd be cropping down probably to the top of that, or maybe even a little bit. No, I'd probably go to the top of that unless I was going to crop off a little of the bottom, make it into a panorama. And I would probably crop off just a little bit to the left just to eliminate those two posts. You know, I do like the fact that they're all looking that way and there's a little space for them. But you can take those out with a crop. You can't eliminate them with a remove tool or something like that, but you can certainly crop those out and make it a panorama. I love the concept of the story of all of these birds apparently coexisting. I thought eagles and hawks and what have you attacked smaller prey like this, but apparently they're all happy on the fence post there. So focus in on them by trying, at least experiment with it. See if you bring that down from the top and maybe just a little bit up from the bottom and re-enter it. Next image. You know, I could, you know, I'm going to talk a little bit later about documentary photography and what have you, and my view of it. And it may not be every judge's view of it, but to me, this is a kind of an illustration picture. It's the type of picture that might be in a magazine article or something about yuccas. But I don't see it as it would be a illustration of what was written in a story rather than the story itself. So I really love the colors in it. I love the positioning of it compositionally. It's great, but I didn't think it was really a real strong nature image. So I gave it it might have been a little bit harsh. I gave it a 6. And if I could change my mind, I'd probably give it a 7. Next. Ditto on this image. And you gotta be careful compositionally having something as big in front. You know, you've got a layering here that's pretty cool. But man, you know, it's not just brightness or darkness that attracts the eye, it's also size. So I would probably, if this were my image, I'd probably be I'd probably be coming up just under the little spiky thing in front of the little barrel there. And I'd probably be coming over about halfway from the left to really concentrate more on that interesting part of the cactus rather than the huge piece in the front. So this I gave a 6.2 and next.
that brings us to the end of our Nature General images. So we'll now go have a look at the award-winning ones. And see the slideshow of the winning images. So just go fast and I'll just take it back. So here we go with Excellence Award, The Ghost Crab by Jan Lyle. Excellence Award, Rose-billed Parakeet, also by Jan. Excellence Award, Bite Size by Darcy Quimby. Honorable Mention, Cactus Triple Bloom by Vida Priester. Honorable Mention, Arizona Bark Scorpion by Brian Vandermark. Honorable Mention, Young Bulls Sparring by Brian Vandermark as well. And I think that is, oh, and the last one is Honorable Mention, Love Nature by Greg Lilly. So we will move on to our monochrome category now. And I noticed in this that there were not as many excellence awards as the honorable mentions, and wondered, Hutch, if you feel that it's a difficult category to do well, the monochrome.
Yeah, it is, oh, the monochrome category.
Yeah,
Yeah, perhaps I think, well, let's take a look at the images and
okay. All right.
you know, one of the things that's hard for me when I judge PSA clubs, if you get to a level where you're judging PSA exhibits and what have you, and I don't do them much anymore, but I've judged a lot of them in the past, and they're cutoff points, and you're expected to have roughly 30% fives and sixes and 30% eights and nines and 40% in the middle. So it's really judging on the curve. And I got to tell you, when I judge a local club, I tend to kind of fit into that because I think, you know, part of it is the learning experience of people moving to the next level. I get a little frustrated when I see some of the, especially S4C judging, where there's just a whole lot of eights and nines, or there's a whole lot of fives and sixes, and there's really no balance. And there's arguably some benefit and some detriment to grading on a curve. The Channel Islands professional photographers I belong to, they judge on a 60 to 100 point score. And you got to get over 100 to get an excellent. And we went for a whole year with 3 judges every month without one single image getting in the excellent. Not one. It's that tough. So, you know, I live in both worlds, and sometimes it's anyhow, I'm rattling on. Let's see the images.
I kind of mucked up. I think we were going to do photojournalism and then monochrome. Are you okay to do monochrome now?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Right. We have 15 images in this.
Yeah, and I gave this a 7. I actually started off a little higher. You know, it's really, really tough in a mono image to get your whites and your blacks and your midtones correct. So if you look at the front of the fellow's hat, it just lost detail completely. You look at the rim light on the top of his shoulders, and it's completely lost detail. Midtones are good. The beard is really, really good. The neck's good. but you just got those highlights, and then some of the shadows maybe are kind of on the edge, especially over on the right. They're pretty good, but not. And that's what kind of slipped me down as I looked at it. I enjoy the composition, um, and technically it's really nice and sharp. But it was those issues that kind of drew me back. Next image.
Yeah, I was able to keep the titles here too, Hutch. So this is a
Oh,
local,
good.
a local
Yeah.
Nepal farmer.
Yeah, and then look at his beard just on the left side of the cigarette there, and it's just lost detail completely. So maybe nitpicking, but that's what held me back on it. Next image.
This is studying lines.
Yeah, I'm sure I could get into a lot of debate on this. I gave this a 7. It's I tend to like actually fairly high contrast low key images, but you got to be a little bit careful with them. Again, I look at her face. I look at the paper that she's reading. Look at the rim light in her hair, and even the edge of the thing she's sitting on is just getting kind of close. And then I think the background maybe was dodged or burned down just a little bit and a little beyond. So there's a door or something back there where I've just completely lost detail. So much as I enjoy a high contrast image, it's just highlights and shadows that kind of pushed me down on this to give it a 7. Chiaroscuro is becoming popular up in our area, which is very high contrast imagery, but it's done with light, not in post, which makes it kind of interesting. And this kind of has a little bit of a chiaroscuro kind of a effect. So another judge may look at it completely different than me. Next. I love the tonality of this. And, it's tough to make an image work with a foreground element that's kind of soft and out of focus. But I looked at this and that kind of in my mind, you still have tones there and you do have, this is a case where below that it's a little bit blocky. But gosh, your eye really goes to the point of interest. It really goes to the man, the tool, what he's doing. And I just really enjoy that. The light on his face is really good with nice shadowing, detail. So I gave this a 9.
This is cactus detail.
Yeah, I gave this a 7, and the tones are pretty good. It's a I would have liked to have seen a little bit more symmetry or something to it. It almost is kind of keystoning in a way, or off center. It's just off center enough. If you took the 1, 2, third stem, the main one right in the middle there, and lined that up in the middle, now you'd have pretty good symmetry. Or if you moved it over onto a diagonal, that would have been strong. But it's just off, and that is what threw me on this one. And then you can remove things. There's little areas that stick or whatever it is down at the bottom running across the image. I probably would have just taken that out, but that again is a pretty big nitpick. Next.
The old farmhouse of Romania.
Gave this an 8. Liked it a lot. Still do like it a lot. Only thing that kind of held me back from a 9 was that window is really, really bright. And that needs to be, I think, toned down some. My eye does go to the actor because the person tends to attract you, but gosh, I sure get pulled over to that window. You need the window there because it's evidence of the light and the direction of the light. Maybe you need it. I'm not 100% sure of cropping from the right to take the window out and cropping down just a little bit from the bottom, or from the top rather, might not have worked a little bit better. But you could try either toning the window down a little bit or doing that crop. And nonetheless, I gave it an 8. So you can't do that and bring it back. Do I need to speed up?
Well, we're doing pretty well
Okay.
because yeah,
Yeah, okay.
there's 16, let's see, we've just got photojournalism left and there's only 14 images in that.
Okay.
We're pretty good.
I gave this an 8. And the reason it wasn't a 9 was I'm just confused.
This
Yeah,
is called
yeah.
solstice, excuse me, but solstice.
Solstice, yeah. Which also puzzled me a little bit. I really enjoy the tones. I enjoy the concept. I think I was confused by kind of the impression that the water's running uphill. I may be mistaken. But I think that the farmland or whatever that is with the patchwork quilt, so to speak, is flooded. And it looks to me like the water's coming down and spreading out and flooding the area. The area to the left, and maybe I just overthought this image. I don't know. But that confused me. And I'm not sure what to do about it either, because I almost stood on my ear seeing what it would be like if I looked at it upside down with the water kind of running the other way. But overall, pretty cool. So it was an 8, bordering on me getting to a 9. Next.
A desert surprise.
Yeah. No, it's a pleasant image. It's a pleasant composition. I think maybe if it were my image, I might have been a little bit more careful with with taking down so much of the stems. You've really separated the flowers from the background, but you've also separated the stems supporting the flowers, so you kind of got them floating almost in space. The other part of it is the 2 buds are almost brighter than the flower itself. And I don't think that they are really the point of interest, but you kind of go to them because they are so bright. And they're a little bit out of focus. So the flowers pretty good, but again, it was focus issues and the contrast and what I've already spoken about that led me to give it a 6. Next image.
Laid back.
I gave this a 7. And this is one that I would love to have somebody bring back. The diagonal and the framing is fantastic. And I love the yuccas that are framed in the background there. Really, when you do a framing like this, it's almost like a leading line. You're focusing the viewer's eyes on that background. What I didn't particularly care for, had it been my image, I would have taken out that trunk on the left just completely, either by crop or otherwise removing it. I don't know that, at least in my view, I don't think it's serving any purpose. I guess, in terms of framing, you could say it is. but it's just a powerful distraction from what I think is really a beautiful central part of the image. So take a look at that and bring it back, because otherwise it's spectacular. Next.
Chef.
Yeah, I gave this an 8, and boy, I am call it an 8.5. In fact, I'm not so sure that it really shouldn't be a 9. It's just a fun image. I love the posture of his hands and the eyes and the face, and uh, it's a fun image. The smoke coming up. I think maybe maybe I squabbled a little bit again with the midtones are so good in most of the image, and then all of a sudden I'm losing detail on the guy standing in the back and right below the pot and in other areas, and so maybe I'm overly nitpicky about that. But that was kind of the difference in the margin for me. So congratulations to the maker. It's a nice image and very deserving, at least of an 8, if not a little bit higher. Next image.
Sway.
Yeah, I gave this an 8. And and again, it's kind of you're there and you got to deal. I can imagine that in color, this probably did not work whatsoever. And so it was a really good choice bringing it into black and white. Um, it, it, it I'm kind of a fuss budget about tonality and blown whites and dark shadows and what have you. And I felt like there's just a little bit of that in the waterfall there. I was losing a little bit of detail, and that's pretty easy to fix. The other thing I would have probably just taken out, I don't know whether it's snow, but I think it's just light. Are the 3 bright spots on the right of the waterfall. You know, you've got the ability in monochrome to do things like that. And I think they're just kind of a distraction away from the waterfall itself. So that took a little bit of an edge off on me. And then the third thing is I feel like, and I could be mistaken, I'm looking at there's a horizontal area towards the bottom of the waterfall that kind of makes me, I just had the sense and the impression that it was leaning a little bit on the top to the left, and that bringing it back so that it was that area was more level and the waterfall was kind of more coming out rather than coming underneath itself. Might have been stronger. So good image, 8. Next. Oh, I wanted so much to do a higher score on this, and this is one I gave a 7 because and it is really hard to do water at the aquariums, but I think that you could probably get a little more contrast and pop out of the aquarium itself. I just felt like the fish up there were um, a little above mid-tone, and maybe that's the way it was, but um, that's kind of where I went with a 7 rather than an 8, was see if you can't pull a little bit more detail and with a little more contrast in the background. Next.
Desolation.
Yeah, and I gave this a 6 after struggling and struggling and struggling, but I really confused. Excuse me. I have no idea what that slanted thing is across there, and maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. But then I kind of struggling with the window itself. The pieces of broken glass against the sky are dark, and the pieces of broken glass against the background at the bottom are light. And I don't know what that's all about. It just was confusing to me. And then I felt like the image was a little bit either keystones or tipped to the right, and maybe should be straightened a little bit. I'm not sure, but I think it was the glass mainly, and the wondering what the heck that diagonal thing was that dropped me down to a 6. So next. I've been talking a lot lately about intent. In fact, I've gotten into some debates with some of my friends that are street photographers over shooting with intent and thinking about what you're shooting, or getting in a place where you can wait for the right time, the right thing to happen. I'm hoping that I'm correct, that this photographer did exactly that. This shows me a lot of intent. The fact that they use the top of that structure to block the sun, that halo around it is just absolutely beautiful. The tonality is throughout. The midtones are wonderful. There is no blocking in the shadows that I can really find. I mean, it's detail everywhere. This, for me, and it's off center just slightly to the left, which works perfectly, especially with those, whatever those things are to the left of it. I just think this is a stupendous picture. This is almost a wall hanger. So I gave it a 9. Next image. And I gave this a 6. Initially, I was higher, but again, I don't want to belabor and beat on it. But the guy's hair is almost blended into the background. It's really high contrast, and his suit is just losing detail. I'm seeing so much of that in so many of the images here, and they really shouldn't be too. I mean, I don't want to change the concept of it being high contrast, but you still can't be having care blending into the detail, the loss of the texture in the coat and what have you. So this is a 6, and I think it's very fixable. So next image.
Joshua Tree infrared.
I gave this a 7, and this may have been a personal impact decision. So you can shoot me afterwards. Yeah. So for infrared, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I think this would have been better with the sepia toning down quite a bit. For me, it was just a little bit overpowering, and I think that I think it's I could be wrong, but kind of the vignette in the top half of it was pretty strong. I think the maker, if it was done in post, maybe intended it that way, just to kind of make it pop out. But this was maybe more, the score was maybe more a result of personal impact than necessarily the technical and compositional elements of the image. Next.
That's the end of the monochrome
Okay.
images. So let's go have a look at the winners here. And this was monochrome.
How many images were there?
15.
15.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious where my curve ended up on that. It's,
Well, there were 2 excellence awards and 4 honorable mentions. So that.
the 6 out of 15.
Oh, wait, I've got the wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know why this did this. Just have to get the right data or it won't show. Okay. Monochrome. Just let this one go by.
Oops, no, we need to go to PJ, right?
Yeah, it always,
Yeah.
it
Oh, no,
always
you got to
slides
the
on me,
run
so
through. Yeah. Yep.
we have
Sorry.
to
Sorry.
let it go and do its thing. Excuse me. So here is your Excellence Award, Goldsmith by Jan Lyle. And as well, the other Excellence Award was The Hut at Bombay Beach by Vida Priester. Those were our two top images. And then we had honorable mention, The Old Farmhouse of Romania by James Cam Choi Watt. And honorable mention, Solstice by Mitch Miller. And honorable mention, Chef by Jan Lyle. And that will take us, oh, sorry, this one too. Honorable mentions, Sway by Mitch Miller as well. Maybe one more. Nope, that's it. So we'll move on to our last category, which is the photojournalism. If you want to say anything about that, Hutch? I think there's 15 entries.
Yeah, very, very, very quickly. It's
14.
at home, we've had a great debate over, because I belong to a club that's very much leans towards street photography. It's not particularly my genre, but the club leans that way. And between them, they all got into a debate between what is street, what is documentary photography, and what is photojournalism. As PSA defines it, photojournalism is about the storytelling. And all three of those genres have some element of storytelling. The difference in my mind, and I think if you went and Googled it, you'd find that the difference to a certain degree from most sources says that PJ, there's an immediacy of the storytelling, of the action, of what's going on. Documentary photography is more supporting of the story, an illustration in a book, you go to a library and there's a documentary photo of the city 40 years ago, and you go to street, and street is kind of photojournalism, but it's almost more spontaneous. So I kind of go around and around in my mind between PSAs being somewhat liberal on that versus that difference between particularly documentary and photojournalism. You can go out and point a camera at an old building and document it, but is that photojournalism in the sense I think of what we're looking for? I don't personally, I don't think so. So anyway, there's kind of where I'm coming from when it comes to PJ. And in PJ, of course, you can't, much like nature, it is sacrosanct that you don't do editing to the extent that it's apparent for sure. Nothing taken out, nothing put in. I do quite a bit of PJ in PPC competition, and I just get so irritated with the judges when they say, well, it's wonderful, but you should have taken this out or put this in. And I think, you guys are not following your own rules. Anyhow, way we go.
Over the Salton Sea.
Yeah, I gave this a 9, and I love the figure to ground relationship. I mean, it just pops out. It's a silhouette, and a lot of really strong figure to ground are silhouettes. Horizon's nice and straight, color is beautiful. There is room for the guy to fly into. Just a really nice PJ image. I think the story is, here's a guy flying at sunset, enjoying the view while he's in the air. This is where Stuart and I would kind of, I think, clash in terms of the storytelling of it. But I really like the image. Next.
After the cyclone.
This is the one I really, really kind of struggled with, being documentary or being PJ. But it really, the more I struggled and fought with that, it is documentary, but it's a PJ story. There's a immediacy. That building hopefully is going to get rebuilt. The dead tree there is going to get removed. And so there is an immediacy, and there is a really strong story to it. So I enjoyed the composition and the framing of it. Initially, I thought, yeah, you should take this out and put this in and take this out, but you lose it. Even if you were allowed to do that, you'd kind of lose the essence of the story. So I believe I gave it a 9, and after arm wrestling with myself, I think it really deserves one. Next. Here's where I kind of got a little stuck between pure documentary image. I mean, it's an interesting image. It's an interesting structure. But I'm not so sure what is photojournalistic about it beyond documenting this interesting structure. It's there's where I got stuck. Maybe somebody falling off the top of it or something. You got a PJ image, but there's really nothing happening. It's static in my mind, and there's nothing wrong with the image. I mean, they very well, whatever this is and wherever it is this is, maybe they would use it in a brochure to show what's happening, what's part of the exhibit. But it kind of lost me, so I gave it a 7 because I thought technically it's pretty well done. But PJ, I'm not so sure it reaches to. Next.
Dance on, my dear.
Yeah. The first inclination I had on this is, why isn't this in color? I mean, it really is almost more a portrait. I'm not so sure what the story is. The costume is unique and different, but is it, I don't know, is it like, if it was Hispanic, it would be a Dia de los Muertos event, and you'd kind of understand the context. I'm not sure of the context here, so I think it's nicely done. But I gave it a 6, only from a standpoint, not from a technical or compositional standpoint, but from a meeting the photojournalism category. Next. Oh, most people that know me would say that this is my genre. This is my probably numero uno specialty. Although I'm older, I'm getting now in my 80s. I'm not doing so much of it as I used to do it. But so I'm very, very familiar with this formation. I gave this a 7. I like the angle. I like the formation. I like it's kind of interesting that you've got the contrail, the smoke being blown out of the middle 4 and not the 2 on the sides. So often I'll see one on the side is still blowing smoke, but not the other one. And, of course, then it's really out of balance. I might have tilted it just a tad more to the right, just so that there was better balance between the right side and the left, and made it symmetrical, or at least angled fully. The other thing, and I actually went back and I looked at some of my own images. it's not sharp.
Mm-mm.
Um, I want to read Navy on there without struggling to do it. And I thought, well, take a look at a couple of mine and just see if that's me. And uh, yeah, it's a little soft. So I gave it a 7. Next, I gave this an 8, and I really love the image. I love the surroundings. I found it really interesting. Only thing that kept me, and actually, here's where the probably I almost could move this. Can I move this up to a 9? Um, I should have looked at the. This is where the title sometimes helps.
Clock repairman.
The reason I gave it an 8 was because I thought I don't know what he's doing,
Mm. Mhm.
and
Actually, we can move it up to a 9. We'll
yeah,
just make it after
Yeah, we can do
after
that.
the fact.
yeah, make it a 9 because and I mean going back and forth on that. I'm saying I wish but it really the detail, the light. Technically, it's really great, which shouldn't be the number one requirement, but there's a eye line, what I refer to as an eye line between him and his hands. I mean, you automatically go there, and then you kind of go around. The spacing of the image is very nice, where your eye can travel around, take in all the other kind of cool stuff that's in there. Um, so yeah, I'm happy with that. Next.
Support.
Yeah, there's the image that you'll remember the other one. Um, the perfect one would have been the other one with these two ladies at the end. There you go. Now you got the quote unquote red bikini with the leading lines taking you down. Nonetheless, I really enjoyed this image. I gave it a 9, and what a story. These two ladies that maybe about my age, I suspect, maybe a little bit older, but not by much. Um, kind of struggling, helping each other across the sand. And the color and the tonality and everything is just so much fun. It's just a fun image and a fun story. Look at the outfits on those two. It's great. So 9, next image. Uh, I've got 9 grandkids. All of them are over 21, but one who is 14 and now playing freshman basketball in high school. And I have taken thousands of images of him playing baseball and basketball. So I know what this is all about. And it's really fun. The expression on his face is fun. I gave it a 7, mainly because it's not sharp, and I know how hard that is to do in that kind of a gym atmosphere. But it kind of needs to be at this level. And I just, I don't know, the posture and the pose and what have you. I and maybe this is personal impact. Having shot so much of it and attended so many of these, just not. It's just not that impactful on me. And again, maybe it would be completely impactful for somebody else that didn't have quite so much experience with it. So anyhow, 7, next image.
Out with Butch on the sand dunes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just don't get it from a standpoint of PJ. I just don't get it. It's kind of a portrait picture or a monochrome picture, but I'm not sure that I understand what the PJ element of it is. Two people sitting on the sand dune, one of them taking a selfie, the other sitting with the dog. I don't know what the black box is in front of her. I looked at that and looked at that and looked at that. I was tempted to take a magnifying glass. So pardon my ignorance, even the title didn't help me much with this one. Pardon my ignorance, but I'm not sure what it's doing in this particular category. So I gave it a 6. Next. Fun image, I gave it an 8. And I like the fact that he has got space to fly into. I was kind of a little the thing he's sitting in, and he is it's sharp, but it almost looks, I don't know, it somehow looks different to me than the sharpness of the balance of the image. So in PJ, you got to be so careful of that kind of thing. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. I gave it an 8. I really do like the image, but there was that kind of little nitpick there. Next.
Falling fast and hard.
Yeah, used to do a lot of rodeo, and the one thing that always frustrated me with judges was they'd say, "Oh, the background is so busy." Well, you shoot rodeos, and you're never not going to have a busy background. I mean, that's the part of the story is the signs and what's going on. I love the clown running to the rescue, that action of it. You kind of caught the pinnacle of the bull rider getting thrown off. You got the two guys in the upper left creating an eye line that takes you right back down. I mean, if you get up there and you're looking at them, you are really forced to go back down and look at the bull and the guy falling off. So just a lot of good stuff going on. I gave this a 9, and I think it deserves it. Next. Without the title, I fought with this one. This is a case where without the title, I would not have had a clue what was going on. So this is one where you say, this is where the debate comes in that says if you need a title to explain it, then maybe it's not in the right category, or maybe it's not fitting the category. And I kind of felt that was the case on this. Technically, pretty darn good. I mean, the colors are fun. The exposure is great. The sharpness is good. But I just didn't have a clue that she was homeless. I just saw what I didn't know. I had no idea what those bags were about. So, I mean, obviously in the library, I figured, well, maybe there were book bags until I saw the homeless thing. And um, so that's how this got to be a
8.
8. As I split the baby, I said, okay, with the title, it's fun and I get it. But without the title, and it would have been the other way. So anyway, next. Same thing with this. In fact, even with the title, the title confused me more than the image did. Shopping to match my hair. What's matching his hair? I don't know. I need to see more. I need to see what's going on. He's unique, but and then I got the people down below in the dining room eating,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, okay, he's knocking on the window or something, or I just don't know. Interesting gal or guy, whichever they are. But again, I'm not quite sure I get it in the sense of PJ and the story, other than if the title had been "Just Got a Haircut," then maybe, I don't know. Anyway, next. This is beautiful. I gave it a 9. Initially, I said, maybe the background should have been sharp too. But the more I looked at it, that just nice background bokeh, it's just perfect. It's almost the blurriness of the background almost gives it a painterly effect, which puts me together with the story of the artist. So, in the sense of it being photojournalism, it it tore me between documenting a scene, but immediacy of photojournalism, and I lean towards that photojournalistic element. I really like the image overall. And the story of I thought, well, maybe there should be more of an angle so I can see what's going on with him drawing, but there's enough of it there that you can see him replicating the scene. Nicely done. 9. Next.
That is it for the photojournalism. So let's go have a look at the winning images.
I was able to make that an excellent award, so it should show up in the slideshow.
Thank you. I think there's never a night that I finish judging one of these competitions that I don't lay in bed or drive home cursing at myself saying, why did I do that?
Okay, great. Thanks, Darcy. Okay, Excellence Award Over the Salton Sea by Vida Priester. And Excellence Award After the Cyclone, Jan Lyle. Excellence Award Support, also by Jan Lyle. Excellence Award Falling Fast and Hard, Diana Edelman. And Excellence Award The Artist in Work, Japan, by James Cam Choi Watt. As well, now Excellence Award Clock Repairman by Jan Lyle. We have honorable mention Flying Over Torrey Pines by Greg Lilly. And honorable mention Homeless Yet Not Bookless, Thank You Public Library, Chris Anderson. And that is it for those images.
Well,
So-
I made up for the lack of them in black and white, didn't I?
Yeah. Yes, there was 5, 6 excellence and 3 honorable mentions now. So 9 of 14. Yeah.
No,
So
you guys have always been such a good club. I judge a lot of clubs, and I mean, there were no bad images of the night. It's
Well, Hutch, if you can stay, if you'd like to stay around, I'm just showing one last competition that was judged by 2 of our members, Nadine Conger and by Darcy Quimby. And it's just, we have these theme contests 5 times a year, and one
good.
in January, and it's called Desert. So I will just show all the images, won't take too long, and then we'll show the winners.
Would love to see them.
Yeah, it's first, second, third. So here we go for theme Desert. Just put them into random order.
How's the weather out there?
Windy,
Cold
I was
and
out-
windy today.
cold and windy. It's
I was
windy.
out of breath. Our garbage cans, the wind got so hard. I've lived in this house for 30 years. It's never ever happened. Our
Oh,
garbage cans got blown over and all of our garbage all down the street.
holy smokes.
Oh, wow, that's
Okay.
beautiful.
We have 24 images in our desert contest. So I'm just going to go through them and then we'll show the winners. They're fun variety. Can you all read the titles? I think you can, right? I could say them, Top of Sinatra. Desert number 2. Dances with Clouds. Sand Monster. Whitewater. Joshua Tree Infrared. Same image we've seen. Canyon Panorama, Orocopia Mountains. New Growth. Ravage of Time. Shoe Tree in Rice. Early Light, Orocopia Mountains. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. The Lovely Dunes. Early Riser. The Three Amigos. Desert Trash. January Cool. Blooming Joshua Tree. Graffiti. And Hidden Springs Oasis, Orocopia Mountains. Those are all of our entries into the January Desert Contest. And our winners were first, second, third. It worked out perfectly. Let's see. Oh, I've got the date wrong. Look at that. If you don't do it, I don't know why it was going back to 2024. Oh. Oh,
I think it's in the middle of the page there, Jan. Special entry contest. Down below, right there.
oh, there.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, got it. Okay. So we had 3 clear winners. This is whoops, 20, a score of 20. First place, Early Riser by Mitch Mitchell. And then second place was Anza Borrego, won by Betty McShane. And third place with 18 points was Dances with Clouds by Mitch Miller. And the interesting thing, we were 1, 2, 3 with those, and then the breakdown was we had 3 images that scored 17, 2 that scored 16, 5 that scored 15, 4 that were 14, and 3 that were 13. But 1, 2, 3 were very clear cut. So congratulations to our winners. And I will stop sharing. And thank you, everyone.
Oh, and Hutch, I was able to figure out that yes, you will be able to whatever, draw on images, even though you're not the screen sharer. And I will go over with Craig on how to do that. So
Yeah, I
Great.
think you'll find that very, very helpful with your judge. And a lot of judges are still not familiar with doing it. It just amazes me. But
Great.
you know, so many times tonight I wanted to say, well, crop here or crop there, and just being able to draw the lines, I think is really helpful for the audience. So that's great.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Hutch, because it was very enlightening. Appreciate it.
Well, thank all of you.
Yes.
It was a
You
great
guys have just always been such an excellent group of photographers. You really have. And so I hope I contributed something. As I said before, you get a different judge and you may get completely different results, but that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Thank
I'd
you.
like to thank you very much for judging for us tonight, and also I'd like to thank Deborah for running this tonight. Deborah, that's just great. I think this is the first one you've run all the way through, isn't it, on the new system?
No, it's my second.
Second.
I
Is it
did
the
the
second?
first one in October.
Okay, okay. Well, Deborah and Darcy, thank you guys for
Thank you.
organizing this whole competition and the WOW theme and everything. So just wonderful. Thanks very much. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording right now before I forget.
Got a hand up there.